Hello and welcome to Storytime at 9. So, as all of you know, every Saturday we travel to different countries with the finest storytellers from that country. And I'm very happy that today we are traveling to a country which has, given us the exposure to most of the Western fairy tales that all of you would have heard about. The most of the fairy tales that all of you read in English, the most popular ones, be it Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Rapunzel, Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, all these stories that all of you are so familiar with, all these stories are actually folk tales collected by the Brothers Grimm from Germany. And we are traveling to the country of Germany, where all these folk tales come from. So it's the land of our imagination that we have all grown up on. So we are very happy that two of the finest storytellers in Germany, Richard Martin and John Rogers, are here with us today. So welcome, Richard and John, to our show.
Thank you.
Hello.
So very happy to have you. This year has been a terrible year in many ways. The pandemic, coronavirus. But then it's because of people like Richard and John that we feel that, yes, there's good things happening in the world. When I told Richard, and I reached out to Richard through Margaret Reed MacDonald, which many of you would have heard. And then Richard, the moment he heard that, we want to expose children, Indian children, to Germany through a storytelling session. So he was all excited and he started making all these plans, we must reach out to John. John stays in the town or village, I don't know what you would call that, of which where the Brothers Grimm belong to. And he, in fact, also planned to go down to the house of the Brothers Grimm to shoot, but then there's a lockdown in Germany, part lockdown, and so it was advisable not to do that. But there are wonderful people out there who are making all kinds of efforts to make this storytelling session as enriching as possible. And I would really want to thank Richard and John for that, and all the others who have been helping us. It's amazing. I really feel so thankful and so full of gratitude and so happy for all of you that you're getting such a enriching. And believe me, the kind of research that they have been doing, when you go through you have to today stay till the end after the storytelling session, when they do the presentation on the country, and where they've done a lot of research about similarities, connections between India and Germany. It was amazing for me to discover that, and I'm sure it will be amazing for you as well. But before that, let me just a couple of announcements. As I have told you earlier, we are all very lucky that we have digital devices at home. We have a laptop or a smartphone by which we can listen to these storytelling sessions. We can participate in them. But there are so many children in India, more than 50% children in India do not have access to smartphones, do not have access to any digital device. So when schools are closed and the only form of education is online, how do they participate in any learning activity which happens online? Forget our storytelling sessions. Even the classes that happen online, they are unable to participate. So we started a campaign called Donate a Smartphone campaign. And initially we didn't have much response, but luckily after that, many of you have contributed phones. Many others have contributed financially so that we can buy phones. And we have been giving away phones. Every week, there are children who get new phones, new or used phones. So this week, let me just share about some. So this was a phone, an old phone, but in excellent working condition, by Mr. Subrata Bagchi, which many of you might have heard of. He is the person who used to come on television every day at 4:30 p.m. telling us about the coronavirus, the progress of the virus in the state. He donated a phone, and this is our volunteer Imrana. And Imrana had identified this girl called Kabita Naik. Can we see the next slide? Now, Kabita studies in class 9 in a government school, and but she didn't have a phone. And she has two younger siblings and an elder sibling, sister, who had failed in her 10th and wants to take the 10th exams once again. And none of them had a phone. So this phone went to Kabita, who is now using the phone to study as well as help her siblings. So that's Kavita, and Imrana is helping her out as well. She is one of the girls who got a phone. Can we have the next slide? And then these are two sisters, you know, Saraswati and Megha Jal. Now one of them studies in class 10, the other in class 9. Again, they didn't have phones. So now, thanks to, I don't know if Ameya, you're watching this today. So this was a phone sent by your father, Santosh, and another phone by Daksh. The next slide. And they are also now able to continue their education. There are 10 phones which are on the way now, which will be giving away in the next 2 days. And there's more. But then if any of you would continue to support this initiative, please get in touch with us at giving.bakul.org. You know, there's this link here, giving.bakul.org. If you click on this link, you will know how to support us, either by sending an old phone or by contributing for a new smartphone. So thank you very much, those of you who have supported us in this campaign, because as we do this, we are constantly aware of children who are unable to get this access, and we would like to help them as much as possible. But that's for later. Please watch the show, and as I have said earlier, please, if you like the videos, definitely do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. You know, if you're watching it on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. If you're watching it on Facebook, please like the page and definitely share this video so that we get to know that you really liked it. So now, Richard, shall we start with you? And, you know, both Richard and John are professional storytellers. As I said, both of them actually have a similar story. They traveled to Germany. They are not originally from Germany. They all traveled to Germany, you know, after the woman they loved. So looks like German women are wonderful women. You know that both of you traveled all the way there. So over to you, Richard, for your stories and anything you would like to tell us.
Well, thank you very, very much indeed. Yes, I must say what Sujit has just said about German women, my wife would agree. And so do I. Because I met her in England, and when she came back to Germany, I came after her. And here I began to meet lots of stories. And I'll tell you a story now. And it's a story of long ago, when there was a boy called Jack. Now, Jack, he lived in a little old house with his little old mother. And they were very happy together. But although Jack's mother loved him dearly, she did notice that when Jack tried to do things, so often things went wrong. And then she'd say, oh, Jack, I love you dearly, but sometimes you're so silly. But then Jack, he'd give his mother a smile that went straight to her heart. Now, I've told you their house was small and old, but it was on the banks of a large river. And there was a bridge going over the river. And on the other side of the bridge, there was a castle. And that was a big castle. It was a big castle because there lived the king. Now, the king, he had a daughter, but she didn't smile. No. And not only did she not smile, she did not speak. And of course, the king, he was so unhappy about this, he did what a king does in a fairy tale. He said, whoever can make my daughter smile and speak, why, that man can have her hand in marriage. Well, that was on that side of the river. On this side of the river, in Jack's little old house, Jack was doing what young boys always do. He was growing up. Yes. And one day, he turned to his mother. Mother, I feel I'm old enough now to go out and do some work. Bring something back for the house and the home. Well, Jack's mother, she knew how when Jack tried to do something, it so often went wrong. She said, but Jack, you can be so silly. Are you sure that's a good idea? He said, Mother, I'll remember not to be silly. You've told me often enough. And with that, he kissed her goodbye, gave her a smile that went straight to her heart, and off he went. He walked down the road to the river. He walked over the bridge and past the castle where there was the princess. You remember? Looking down. Well, Jack went past the castle and he walked on up the road till he came to a farmer. And the farmer said, Morning, Jack. Where are you off to this fine summer's day? I'm off to look for work. Look for work, eh? Oh, good job you came here, because I'm looking for someone to do some work for me. Come along, Jack, and I'll show you. And the farmer, he took Jack to a field. And he said, Jack, in this field, I need someone to dig a hole. Can you do that? Dig a hole, farmer? Oh, when it comes to hole digging, I'm champion. In that case, here's the spade. And the farmer gave Jack the spade. And Jack, he took that spade and he began to dig. And all day long, he dug and he dug and he dug. And at the end of the day, when the farmer came back, a great big hole, said the farmer. Jack, that's just what I wanted. You've worked well, and here's your pay. And the farmer put his hand into his pocket and he took out a penny. Now, you may say, a penny? That's not very much. But you must understand, this was a long time ago. And in those days, long before inflation, a penny was a lot of money. And when Jack saw that penny, his eyes opened wide with delight. Oh, I'll take this back to my mother. She will be pleased. And off he went, walking back down the road, holding a penny. Well, you know what you do when you've got a penny in your hand, don't you? Yes, he flipped it up and caught it. Then he walked a bit longer and he flipped it and caught it again. Yes. And he kept on flipping and catching all the way down the road, past the castle. There she was. Over the bridge, flipping it. And this time, he didn't catch it. And where did the penny go? Shoo! Yes, you're right. Straight into the water. Oh. And Jack walked home. Well, Jack, how did you get on? What did you bring back? What was your pay? The pay? It was a penny, Mother. A penny? Oh, that is good. Oh, where is it? In the river. Jack. Oh, Jack. I love you a lot, but you are so silly. Do you not understand, Jack? What you should have done was put that penny into your pocket. Sorry, Mother. I'll remember tomorrow. And he gave her a smile that went straight to her heart. Well, the next morning, Jack, off he went. I remember, in my pocket. He walked down to the river, over the bridge, past the castle. There was the princess. And on to the farmer, who said, Jack, I'm glad you've come back, because come with me and I'll show you a second field. A second field. You know what I need, Jack? A hole. Here's the spade. And Jack took the spade and he dug and he dug and he dug. He dug, so at the end of the day, the farmer came back. Just what I wanted. Now, Jack, for you, I've got some new pay today. so you can have something good for your dinner. Here's a big jug of milk, sweet, fresh milk. Oh, and Jack looked at that jug of milk and he thought, that's good. Well, have some porridge tonight for dinner. My mother will be pleased. Mother? He remembered what she had said. Do you remember what she had told him to do? So he did it. Into his pocket. Well, he was walking home, his trousers very wet, all the way home, past the castle, over the bridge. Mother said, Jack, what happened? Why are your trousers so wet? Well, I got my pay. It was a jug of milk, but I remembered what you said. Jack, I do love you a lot, but you are so silly. Do you not understand what you should have done? You should have carried that jug of milk on your head. Sorry, Mother. But he gave her a smile and he went straight to her heart. I'll remember tomorrow. Tomorrow, he remembered. Mother, on my head. Off he went. Over the bridge, past the castle. Farmer. Nice to see you, Jack. Now, I do have a third field and it hasn't got a hole yet. Come on. So Jack, he took the spade and he dug and he dug and he dug. At the end of the day, the farmer came back. Just what I hoped to see. Jack, today for your pay, a special treat for you. I've been making cheese. And here I've got a nice big fresh soft cheese here. That's for your dinner. Oh, my mother, she does like cheese. Mother, he remembered what she said. Do you remember? So he put the cheese on his head, the white, soft cheese, and he walked home down the road under the hot sun, and the cheese began to melt and melt and melt as he walked back down past the castle, over the bridge. Mother looked at him. Jack, what have you done? But you said on my head, oh, Jack, I love you a lot, but you are so silly. Do you not understand? You should have carried that in your hands. Sorry, Mother. Gave her a smile straight to her heart. Next morning, she said, I'll remember in my hands. Over the bridge, past the castle, off to the farm. The farm's like, Jack, here's the spade, and there's another field waiting for a hole all day long. He dug and he dug and he dug. When the farmer came back, he said, Jack, I know everyone here has trouble with rats and mice in their homes, but you will never have problems again because look what I've got for your pay. A big tomcat. And Jack looked at that tomcat. Ooh, he'll be good for catching rats and mice. I can see it. My mother, she always likes a cat. So Jack, he got hold of the tomcat and he remembered hands, but that tomcat, they don't always like being carried, do they? No. And his claws came out and he scratched and he scratched and he bit until at last, boom, he jumped out of Jack's hands and ran away. And Jack had to walk back home, down the road, past the castle, over the bridge. And Jack's mother looked at him, his clothes all ripped, his face scratched. Jack, what's happened? It was a tomcat, but I remembered what you said in my hand. I love you a lot, but yourself, do you not understand what you should have done? You should have taken a piece of string, tied it round the cat's neck, and you could have led the cat home. I remember, Mother. Next morning, I've got the string in my pocket. Out he went. Over the bridge, past the castle. Farmer. Jack, this is good. I've got another. All day long, you know what happened? He dug and he dug and he dug. At the end of the day, the farmer came. He said, for you, I've got something special for your dinner. Today you can have some roast lamb. Look at this. And he gave Jack a beautiful leg of lamb to carry home. Oh, Jack was pleased. My mother, she does like roast lamb. Mother, he remembered. He took the piece of string out of his pocket, tied it round the leg of the lamb, and he dragged it home. Yes, all the way home down the road, with the dogs who were running after him, biting and biting and biting. And by the time he got past the castle, over the bridge, at the end of the string, there was only the bone of the lamb. And his mother said, Jack, I love you. I love you. There's something you not understand. You should have put that on your shoulders. I remember. The very next day, out Jack went, shoulders, over the bridge, past the castle. Farmer. Jack, it's a good job you've come. I've got one last field, and it doesn't have a hole in it yet. Can you do it for me? All day long. You know what Jack did. At the end of the day, the farmer said, Jack, you have worked so well this week. I've got something special for your pay. Here, a donkey. And Jack looked at the donkey. Oh, my mother will be pleased. A donkey for us. Ooh. Mother? He remembered. Yeah? Shoulder? Well, have you ever tried carrying a donkey on your shoulders? It's not easy. The only way to do it is what Jack did. He got down under the donkey, one arm round the donkey's back legs, one arm round the donkey's front legs, and up he lifted with the donkey staggering down the road with the donkey on his shoulders, all the way down the road, past the castle where the princess was. Looking and looking. And Jack just looked so funny. For the first time in her life, she laughed and she laughed and she laughed. Well, when the king heard his daughter laughing, he came hurrying. He brought Jack in. You made my daughter smile. And then she spoke. She said, Jack, I don't know. Perhaps you do things which are sometimes a bit silly. But I do think perhaps your smile has gone straight to my heart. And perhaps I love you a lot. And so it was. Jack and the princess, yep, they got married. And when the king, he built up Jack's little house, made it really fine, so the princess could live there with Jack and his old mother. Do you know what the king did? At the back of the house, he built an extra little bit just for the donkey. And that is where they all lived happily ever after. And that is the end of my tale. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. It was a wonderful story indeed. And yes, so some of you have been asking that there are two storytellers. Will it take more time? There are two storytellers, but in the same time. So don't worry about that. We'll end around the same time. So we have, but today is a double bonanza. As I said, we have Richard Martin. I'm sure you love the story. Okay, Richard will be back to tell another story. But before that, we have John. And let me tell you one more thing. At the end of the storytelling, we have the presentation about Germany, about the culture. Now, one of the reasons why we wanted to have Germany today, in fact, with today, we are starting a month of Christmas celebrations. Now, Christmas, funnily, is not just a Christian festival. It's a festival that we all celebrate also. We all become Santa in our own hometowns, And and Germany has a rich association with the way we celebrate Christmas, whether it's a Christmas tree and there are Christmas markets. So what I had done was I did a little Google on the best Christmas celebrations in the world. And lo and behold, there was Germany out there. So today we have Germany. The next Saturday, we have another country. Christmas celebrations are very special in the Scandinavian countries. Up north, those of you who know Scandinavia, which countries come as part of Scandinavia, please write that down in the comments box. It would be nice to know that you know which countries are called the Scandinavian countries. And then the last Saturday of this year, of December, we are traveling to the birthplace of Jesus. Okay, so that I'll ask you which place that is later. But now over to John Rogers for some fantastic storytelling once again.
Thank you so much, Sujit, and hello, everyone. Yeah, thanks for that great introduction. And, Richard and I, as he said, both moved to Germany because we fell in love with a German woman. And we also both learn the German language because we live and work here. And sometimes I go into schools and tell stories in German too. But today I'm going to tell you three very short stories, some of my favorite stories from Germany, but in English language. And the first story I'm going to tell you is one of my favorites from the Brothers Grimm. So not one of the long stories, but a really, really short one. So see if you can guess the title by the end of the story. So once upon a time, there was a poor girl, and she lived alone with her mother. And one day, unfortunately, they had nothing left to eat. And the little girl went out into the forest. And there she met an old woman. And this old woman, she already knew about the girl's troubles and her suffering. And the old woman gave the girl a pot. And she said, "When you are hungry, say, pot, cook. And the pot will cook a sweet porridge. And when the pot should stop cooking, you say, pot, stand. And the pot will stop cooking." So the girl remembered what the old woman said, and she took the pot with her and went home to her mother. And they were both hungry, so they said, "Pot, cook." And the pot cooked and cooked the sweet porridge. And they ate until they could eat no more. That sweet porridge tasted good. And what did they say then to stop the pot cooking? Do you remember? Pot, stand. Pot, stand. That's the magic word. Anyway, so every day when they were hungry, pot cook, and they ate, and then pot stand, and the pot stopped cooking. And so all was good again. They were no longer poor and no longer hungry. But one day, the little girl went out. Her mother was alone at home, and she was hungry. So what did she say? Pot, cook. That's right. And the pot cooked and cooked and cooked the sweet porridge, and the mother ate and ate and ate until she could eat no more, till she was full. Oh, but now, how do I stop the pot cooking? Oh, she'd forgotten the password. You know, when you forget your password for your mobile phone or the computer, what was it? Pot, stop. Pot, don't do that. Pot, no. But nothing worked. She'd forgotten the password, and the pot kept on cooking and cooking and cooking, and the sweet porridge, it spilled out over the side of the pot until the whole kitchen, the whole house, the whole street, the whole town was full of sweet porridge. There was only one house left. And then finally, the little girl came home, and what did she say? Pot, stand. Thank goodness. And the pot stopped cooking just in time. And if you want to go into town, you will have to eat your way through that sweet porridge. Yeah, so guess the name of the story? The Sweet Porridge. Yeah, a little short story from the Brothers Grimm. And we're going to talk more later about the Brothers Grimm and where they came from and what they did. But I've got two more short stories from Germany, two of my favorites. So in this one, there are 10 men. You say it, 10 men. And these 10 men, they decided to stick together and to go walkabout. We must stay together, they said. We must make sure that nobody gets lost. So we stay together. So they walked and walked and walked across the land. Dum, 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 dum. And then suddenly, stop, said the first man. Do, 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 do. And they all stopped. And he said, hang on, we said we want to stick together. Let's just count to make sure that we are all still here. I will count. So, that's me. And he pointed to himself. And then he pointed to the second man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 men. But we were 10 men. Where's number 10 gone? He's missing. Oh, said number 2. Are you crazy? Let me count. I can do this better. Here am I. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're right. There's one missing. There's only 9 men now. Where's number 10 gone? Said number 3. You guys, you can't count, can you? Let me do it. La 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 la. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where's number 10 gone? There's one missing. And each of the men tried, and none of them could find more than 9 men. Just at that moment, a woman was walking by, and the 10 men said, Stop, 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 stop. Can you help us? When we started out on our journey, there were 10 of us, and there's one missing now. We can't find him. He must have walked away. How did you count? Said the woman. And they told her. Like that. Ah, I see the problem, said the woman. Okay, here's what you have to do. Here on the ground, there is mud. Now, each one of you needs to kneel down and put your face in the mud, and then bring your face out again. So each of the men knelt down in the mud and put his face in the mud, and then each one sat up again. All 10 of them. And then they all counted. In the mud, they could see 10 faces. Oh, there are 10 of us after all. Oh, lady, thank you so much for helping us solve our counting problem, our math problem. Ah, thank you, she said, no problem, and the woman walked off. And so the 10 men carried on their journey, and they were so happy because they'd solved their math problem. Well, maybe you can solve yours too. So I've got one more short story before I hand back to Richard. And this is another of my favorites that I often tell in German. So here I'll tell it to you in English. There were 3 old women. It's also about food. There were 3 old women and they were hungry. And they said, let's make pancakes. I don't know if you make pancakes in India, but I know you make similar things. And you have to mix the ingredients up in a bowl, don't you? So one of the old women, she brought an egg. The other old woman, she brought some flour. And the other one brought some milk and a little bit of salt and a little bit of sugar to make the pancakes sweet. And they mixed all the ingredients up in a bowl, and then they poured the nice mixture into the pan, and the pan got really hot, and the pancake cooked and cooked and cooked. And when the pancake was ready, it stood up in the pan with two little legs, jumped out of the pan, and ran away. Galloper, 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 into the woods, into the forest. Well, it hadn't gone very far through the forest when there, standing in the middle of the path, there was a rabbit, a bunny rabbit, like we say. Big, fat pancake. Stan, stop. I want to eat you up. I'm hungry. Now, the pancake could also speak. I've just run away from 3 old women. And you think I won't be able to run away from you too, Bunny Big Ears? And the pancake ran away. Galloper, galloper, into the forest. And it ran and it ran. But then a wolf came a-running. And the wolf was hungry. Big, fat pancake. Stop. I want to eat you up. I've just run away from 3 old women and Bunny Big Ears, and you think that I can't run away from you too, Wolfie Greyskin? And the pancake ran away, galloper, galloper, into the forest. Then came a goat, hopping along. Ah, big fat pancake, stop, let me eat you up. I'm so hungry. I've just run away from 3 old women and Bunny Big Ears and Wolfie Greyskin, and you think I can't run away from you too, Goatee Longbeard? And the pancake ran away into the forest, galloper, galloper. Then came a horse, Moo, and saw the pancake. Big fat pancake, stop! I'm so hungry, let me eat you. I've just run away from 3 old women and Bunny Big Ears and Wolfie Greyskin and Goatee Longbeard, and you think I can't run away from you too, Horsey Flatfoot? And the pancake ran away, galloper, 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 into the forest. Well then, at that moment, along came a pig, snuffling its way along the ground. Pig, fat pancake, stop. I want to eat you. I just run away from 3 old women and Bunny Big Ears and Wolfie Greyskin and Goatee Longbeard and Horsey Flatfoot, and you think I can't run away from you too, Piggy Ringtail? And the pancake ran away, galloper, galloper, into the forest. But the pig ran after the pancake. The pancake had to run for its life, and it came to a stream, and it jumped into the water in the stream, and the pig jumped in after it. Now, the pancake couldn't swim very well, and the pig got closer and closer to the pancake and said, do you want to come onto my snout? I can carry you across. The pancake had no choice. Jumped up onto the piggy's snout, and then out came the piggy's tongue and ate up half the pancake. But the other half of the pancake jumped out onto the other side of the stream, onto the bank, and continued running away. And the pig tried to run after it. But that's why, to this day, the pig snuffles along on the ground, because it's looking for the other half of the pancake. And the other half of the pancake kept on running and came to 3 children standing in the middle of the forest path. And the children saw the pancake, the half pancake, and said, "Oh, big fat half pancake. Oh, we're so hungry, we haven't eaten all day. Oh, can we eat you?" The half pancake thought for a moment and then said, "Yes." And he jumped into the children's mouths and they ate him up. And they weren't hungry anymore. And I hope you aren't too. Thank you for listening. I hand you back to Richard. Going to tell another story.
Thank you very much, John. We are going to listen to Richard again. But then just requesting all the children out there, please do not keep commenting. Please listen to the stories. Otherwise, we will have to disable the conversation. So please understand that if you are distracted, you are also distracting others. Now, that is not something I would really want you to do. So I request you, please do not disturb others. The other thing is, I see that many of you have joined for the first time today for our storytelling sessions. Just to let you know, every Saturday at 9 p.m. live on the channel, wherever you're watching this, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, we travel to different countries with the finest storytellers who tell us about the country and the culture and also tell us stories from that country. So any Saturday, you can just join it at 9 p.m. live for the live session and interact with storytellers. But if you miss it, you can always watch the videos later on the same places, on YouTube, the Buckle Foundation channel, or on Facebook videos. You can watch it anytime. Okay, so do that. And now we will go to Richard. But one more announcement. Please remember that every Sunday, we also have storytelling in Odia at the same time at 9 p.m. on the same channels. We call it Rabibar Gopobar. And tomorrow, we are having storytelling along, and it's a unique storytelling session. We are having storytelling along with origami. The stuff you make with paper. Okay, so be ready with your paper, A4 size sheets, A4 sheets, and or newspaper, have it with you. So tomorrow's Rabibar Gopobar storytelling in Oriya, our local language, at 9 p.m. same time. Today we continue now with story time. Next Saturday with another country, every other Saturday. So over to Richard now.
Okay, well, thank you, Sujit. And I'll tell you another short story from the Brothers Grimm. But I must tell you, today is the very first day that I have told this story. I've known it for a long time, but I've never told it before. But I'm telling it the first time for you. And it's a story about a man who was a shoemaker. And although he worked well, this poor man, he found that times were hard and less money was coming into his house. One day, he had so little money in the house, there was only just enough to buy leather for one pair of shoes. Well, he bought the leather, he worked at it, he cut it all out, and at the end of the day, he put that leather on his workbench with the tools, and he ate the little food he had with his wife, and he went to bed. The next morning, he got up and went down to the workbench to start work on that leather. But when he got there, imagine his surprise. There wasn't any leather waiting for him. Oh no. That leather had already been worked and made into a pair of shoes. The shoemaker? He picked up the shoes and he looked at them, and they were so well made. Each stitch was so beautifully put in. Oh, wow. What should he do? He took those shoes and he put them in the window. And it was not long before a customer came by and said, "Oh, they do look good. I must have these shoes and I'll pay well for them." And he did pay well. Now, the shoemaker, he had enough money to buy leather for 2 pairs of shoes. And he worked all day. He prepared the leather. He cut them out. And he put the leather on his workbench with his tools to carry on working the next morning. Now, you know what happened when he went back down the next morning. Yes, that leather had already been worked and made into 2 pairs of shoes. Again, so beautifully worked. Well, he put those shoes in the window, and it was not long before they were sold. And yes, you are right. He had enough money to buy leather for 4 pairs of shoes. And so it went on. The next morning, 4 pairs of shoes, those were sold. Yes. Very soon, the shoemaker and his wife, they were poor no longer. They were quite prosperous. Well, as the time was coming up to Christmas, the shoemaker's wife, she said one evening, "Husband, do you know, perhaps instead of going to bed, let us stay up tonight and see who it is who is helping us." And so the 2 of them, they hid behind the door of the workshop. And as they heard the great bell in the church tower, the clock beginning to toll midnight, they saw, jumping onto the workbench, 2 little men, tiny little men. Yes, they were elves. Little elves, the long hair, and they weren't wearing anything else. Stark naked they were. Yes, but they picked up those tools and they hammered and stitched, and they hammered and stitched, and they worked so quickly, they worked so nimbly, that very, very soon all was done and the shoes were there. And then the little elves, they disappeared. The good woman, she turned to her husband and said, "Do you know, now we can see who it is who is helping us, but they've helped so much and I feel so sorry for them. Stark naked and bitter cold this is. Husband, I'll tell you what we'll do. Tomorrow, I shall make a suit of clothes for each of them, and you make some little shoes as well." And so it was. The very next day, the good woman, why, she knitted and knotted, she snipped and she stitched, and soon she had a suit of clothes for each of them. There were all the nicely knitted socks, a pair of underwear, a pair of trousers, a shirt, a jacket, a nice little hat to go on top. And the shoemaker, of course, he had made 2 beautiful tiny pairs of shoes. That evening, and it was Christmas Eve, they took their presents, and instead of putting leather out on the workbench, yes, they put out the suits of clothes and the pairs of shoes. And again they hid behind the door. And once more, as the church bell, the bell of the clock in the church tower began to toll at midnight, out jumped the little men. But this time they looked and they saw, instead of leather to be worked, yes, clothes to be worn. They were so happy, they danced and danced for joy. So they sat down, then they pulled on all those clothes, the socks, the underwear, the trousers, the shirt, the jacket, the little hat on top, and a pair of shoes they laced up fine. And then they danced some more, and they danced and they danced right out of the door. And those elves were never seen again. But the shoemaker and his wife, they continued to live well in prosperity and in great happiness for the rest of their days. And I hope that is true for you. Thank you for listening to my tale.
Thank you so much, Richard and John. It was lovely listening to the stories. Of course, many of the children are familiar with many of the Grimm's tales particularly, but I'm sure they never had it told so beautifully.
Yeah.
So I think we will not delay any further. Let's get to your sharing about about Germany and its culture. There have been many children asking about that. So let's get directly to that.
Okay, then let me come to this one. And we'll say, first of all, Willkommen in Deutschland.
Well, what does that mean, Richard?
Now, what do you think? It means welcome to Germany. And as you see, Germany is right in the middle of the continent of Europe. And the people of Germany are also very proud that we are part of the European Union. Yes, we like the fact that neighboring countries can work together and live with each other in peace.
So, what do you think we should tell the children about Germany, Richard? What is Germany famous for?
Well, as I travel the world, one thing people always seem to know about Germany is football. Yes, you see, we have many famous clubs. I'm sure you know some of the names, you children. And yes, the football clubs from Germany, many of them are pretty successful too.
Yeah, Bayern München, Eintracht Frankfurt. Yeah. What else do people around the world associate with Germany?
Well, one other thing I've always found is, of course, cars. And I'll give you pictures of two here, very famous ones. There's BMW, there's Mercedes, but you also know Volkswagen and Audi are very popular. I know in Germany as well, because you see, Germany has a long history of high quality industry, a long history of that.
But people don't only work, do they? They also eat. What would you say is typical German food?
Well, this may sound strange to some of you children, but what Germans do with cabbage is really rather special. Cabbage, the word is Kraut in German, and the cabbage here is pickled in salt for at least a few weeks, and that makes it sour. And that is why it is called sauerkraut. And in Germany, we often eat it with sausages. And personally, well, I love it.
Yeah, so do I. It's rather unusual, but it tastes wonderful. What else can we say is typical of Germany?
Well, I think people often think of Germany, especially with the fairy tales, they think of castles. And so this one, Neuschwanstein, it's called Schloss Neuschwanstein. Schloss is the German word for castle. And it looks like a real fairy tale castle, doesn't it? Didn't you tell me, John, that was used in Hollywood?
I think they used it in one of the Hollywood films, like Cinderella, or one of the great fairy tales. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, there it is. It's in southern Germany, and it's on the edge of the Alps, and the Alps are the highest mountains in Europe.
Well, now, Richard, at this time of year, we shouldn't forget there's also normally the Christmas markets.
Ah, yes.
Every town has a Christmas market, and Germany's even exported Christmas markets to other countries now. They're very, very popular in various countries. And here you can see a typical selection of Christmas decorations that you would normally be able to buy at a Christmas market and put in your home.
Yes, and decorating the home at Christmas is very important for us. Now, every German family has a Christmas tree. And this is a photo of me last Christmas. And you can see the tree's been beautifully decorated. We do that on Christmas Eve. And we hang all those things which we bought at German markets. And we light candles. And those are real candles. And you see in my hand, I've got a match and I've just lit them, actually. And the the tradition of a Christmas tree is spread very much throughout the world, but it did come from Germany first of all, and it was brought into the tradition was brought into England in the 19th century by the German husband of Queen Victoria. His name was Prince Albert, and that's why perhaps the Christmas tree became very popular throughout the world.
Oh, a little history lesson. Yeah. Okay, but now I think it's time to show you where we live. We both live in the western part of Germany, near the well-known city of Frankfurt, the city of banks. I live in a small town called Steinau an der Straße. That means Steinau on the street or on the road.
Yes, and I live just to the south of Frankfurt. It's in a city called Darmstadt. And like most places in Germany, if you walk around Darmstadt, you can see things from the past and you can see things right next to them, very modern. And that's also another thing we're famous for in Darmstadt, the university. It's the world famous Darmstadt University of Technology. As I've written here, students from all over the world come to study here. And of course, many come from India. And that's a photo of a group of international students. And right at the front, on the right, is a young man called Vivek, friend of mine, and he's from Kerala. Now, we thought, perhaps when some of you children are older, why not some of you study in Germany too? Anyway, tell us something about your town, John, of Steinau.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we saw a castle earlier on, a Schloss. Here is the Schloss or the castle in the town of Steinau, and I live very near to this town. So when I moved here 13 years ago, I was really excited to find out that in this same small town, the Brothers Grimm lived when they were children. There they are, Jakob and Wilhelm Grimm, the world famous collectors of stories. As Sujit said at the beginning, many of you know the stories they collected, like Sleeping Beauty and Rapunzel, etc. And now we've got a picture of their house. That's where they lived 200 years ago. Isn't it beautiful? And today it's a museum. It's full of all kinds of things to do with the Grimms and their fairy tales and the other things they did. And if you go into this house, I hope you will visit one day, you will see the kitchen where the Brothers Grimm as children probably listened to stories from their auntie. And that's me playing my baby trombone in the kitchen. I'll just play you a few notes on my trombone so you can hear what a trombone sounds like. There we go. Anyway, the Brothers Grimm, like I said, they grew up loving stories. They heard them from their aunties, and later on, they collected many stories and wrote them down from other storytellers. And the book they published 200 years ago has been translated, wait for it, into 160 languages. It's one of the most successful books in the world. And maybe you've read stories like Sleeping Beauty or Snow White in your own language.
It was actually Wilhelm Grimm who worked most on the stories. Jakob, he was more interested in languages and how languages developed. Now, I'm sure some of you children know the name of the old Indian language that is used in the Hindu scriptures. Yes? Yes. Sanskrit. Now, we're going to play a game. Sujit will say an old Sanskrit word, and there you can see the first word. And then we'll say it in English and then in German. Sujit, say please the first word.
Right. Matru.
And in English, that, of course, as you probably know, is mother. John?
Well, what's the German word? That is Mutter. So the next word is an interesting word for the Brothers Grimm. Sujit.
It's Bhrata. If you've seen the epics, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhrata Shri, so Bhrata.
And of course, we say it's interesting for the Brothers Grimm because in English the word is brother.
And in German, Bruder. Very similar. Say the next word, please, Sujit.
Yeah. Go.
And in English, cow.
And in German, Kuh. Can you hear how similar these words sound? Well, that's because they're all cousins. They're in the same family. And one of the things the Brothers Grimm discovered, as many other people, is that all of the European languages go back to India. India is the mother of the European languages. Now, the Brothers Grimm, we know they collected the stories and we know they researched languages. There's one more thing that they also did that was very important. They were active in politics, especially Jakob Grimm. He became a member of the first German Democratic Parliament way back in the year 1848. And you can see this building here, the Pauluskirche in Frankfurt. You can, if you ever come to Frankfurt, it's one thing that all the tourists visit, the Pauluskirche. It's very famous. And you can go in there and you can see the place where Jakob Grimm gave his speeches back in 1848. But I think we're running out of time, Richard.
Yeah, let's say it was a quick introduction to Germany. But when you are older, we do hope you will come here because it is a wonderful country, and especially if you want to study. So thank you for giving us a chance to show you something about the country where we live.
Thank you so much. In fact, you made a repeated invitation to all the children to kind of come to Germany to study. And I must tell you, my father also studied in Germany. He did his PhD in Hamburg. And so as a child, I've never been to Germany, but I've always grown up listening to stories about Germany and about Germans and German education, of course, German engineering. I remember, I don't know how many of you children have traveled on Lufthansa. It used to be called, I don't know now, the safest airline. You know, there used to be terrorist attacks. And there was a wonderful line that I had read. We have engineers who check the engineers who check the engineers who check your aircraft, or something like that. So,
That would be true.
Yes. And with all electronic items, of course. Right. So we have lots of questions, but it's already 1 hour. So we'll see. I'm really sorry we won't be able to take most of your questions. Some of your questions have already been answered, like Sushri Swastika from Carmel School had asked about, she wanted to know about Germany's culture. I think a lot of it you already heard about. But then she has a question about the dress. Would you like to say anything about the dress, either of you?
John, come on.
Okay, so there are different regions of Germany, just as in India, there are many different regions. I guess probably the most famous local dress would be in Bavaria, which is the south of Germany. And we didn't have a picture of that today, but they wear something, the men wear some short trousers, like shorts, which they call lederhosen. Leder means leather, and hosen means trousers. So leather trousers, and that's very traditional dress in Bavaria. And the women wear something called Tracht, which is a very, very pretty kind of traditional dresses that the women wear. But in other parts of Germany, I don't think there's any traditional dress that's so strongly associated.
Both
Richard?
people wear similar. Like, I guess you are wearing shirt and trousers the way I am.
Yes.
Modern modern Western dress is normal. Yeah.
Okay. So I think
could I say one thing about India and dress? Yes, in Germany, John mentioned that the lederhosen are shorts. Yes, men in the summer, they will wear shorts a lot. Now, I know in India that's not always so acceptable. And I know that because one of my sons spent 3 years in Germany and in India, and I visited him in there, and he said, "Please wear long trousers." This was 20 years ago. Perhaps it's a little bit more acceptable now again, but he said, "Yeah, it's not quite like in Germany. We're in India now. Better wear long trousers." Anyway, that's one small difference.
Yeah, it's becoming more acceptable now than it was 20 years back. There are questions about your opinion and whether you've been to India. But before that, I think there's a question which has recurred. What is the time now in Germany?
The time is 5:30 in the evening. 5:30.
So we're 4.5 hours behind you.
Yeah. So
we had a previous question. There was a first question there. It said, "What's the most famous story in Germany?"
Yeah. I was coming to that. Yeah, Sarah had asked that question. The most famous story.
I don't think there's one most famous story.
There are so many. And it's not only the Brothers Grimm who collected stories. There are other collectors as well. So it's important. I think probably the Grimms are the most well-known. Perhaps Cinderella is one of the best known. But, of course, we know that story is told in many, many other countries around the world.
Every country.
Yeah, many of these stories came from India, first of all. I've been told that China has some very, very old versions of Cinderella, going back thousands and thousands of years. So, so easy to say which is the most famous.
Let's say that the Grimm stories that became Hollywood films are probably the most famous ones, for everybody.
And even in the picture book version, the Disney versions are there. So
there are many different versions indeed, and I personally, as a storyteller, I like to tell versions which perhaps people don't know. They're surprised. Very often, these are the older versions. That's how I choose stories.
Yeah. So, for those of you who do not know, I'm sitting at the Bakul Library in Bhubaneswar, where we have a wonderful collection of children's books, and we have many versions of the Cinderella, as they mentioned. And in fact, I would like to mention that very interestingly, there's a very beautiful Persian Cinderella version, a picture book that we have. And I remember a wonderful Chinese version of the Little Red Riding Hood. It's called the Lon Po Po. So you can, when the library reopens, when things get better in India with COVID in our place, you can come and check out these books.
Sorry, just to add to that, as we said in the presentation, the Grimm stories have been translated into 160 languages. It's the second most translated book out of German in history after the Luther Bible.
Okay. So Abhivir is asking, aren't you guys foodies? Well, I think we missed the part about the sauerkraut.
Yeah, I am very much a foodie, and I do the cooking in my family, and I enjoy food a lot. What are my most favorite food? I don't know. I cook from all over the world. Today we're having a Chinese-based stir fry. You see, I cook curries. I do like cooking biryani, and what I enjoy cooking for German, sauerkraut. I really do cook sauerkraut quite often. So, yeah.
John, what about you? What do you like eating?
I like eating anything my wife cooks. I'm not a good cook, or she won't let me cook. But
by the way, I bake my own bread. I'd like to.
I've also done that, and I like baking with sourdough. That's a traditional German recipe. And I also make kefir every day. Kefir, the milk drink with you make it from bacteria. Yeah.
Does your bread run away? It doesn't.
Yeah, the pancake leaks up in the pan. And
Mine stays here and I eat it. But it's also
Okay.
sourdough, yeah.
So Priyanka had this question about, have you been to India? Richard, you could tell a little more about your India
Yeah.
trip?
I have been to India several times. I've been some of the time to visit my son, who spent the last 2 years of his school in near Pune. After that, before he went to university, he went to for a year in Ladakh, and he taught English to the little monks, the novice monks in a Buddhist monastery. And so I visited him when he was there with my wife. But I've also been to other places as a storyteller, to Bangalore, to Chennai, to down into the south of India as well. So, yeah, I've been around a few times.
What about you, John?
You know, if they do surveys in Britain of people's favorite food, you might think that fish and chips would come top of the list. But actually, curry is the favorite food in Britain. And curry has always been my favorite food. But unfortunately, I've never had the chance personally to visit India. I have been to Sri Lanka several times because we had friends there. And clearly, you know, Sri Lanka also has great curries with lots of coconut. And so I do love Asia. I haven't been for a long time.
Now you have friends in India as well.
I do. I look forward to coming. Yeah.
Yes. And maybe some of the children will take you around and show you the castles here. The way you showed your castles.
Yeah, and of course, you know, if they ever come to Germany, they should send us a message.
So I hope all of you remember that. You get in touch with us and we'll connect you to John. I think there have been a lot of questions about the festivals and religion in Germany.
Well, how do we answer that? I would say religion is not so important for us here in Germany. John, I know you have your own particular religious views. You might say something about those in a moment.
Well,
but
yeah.
John.
Well, clearly within Europe, there's the long history with Christianity, and there was originally the Catholic Church. And some of you have maybe heard of the Protestant part of Christianity. That actually began in Germany with a man called Luther 400 years ago, 500 years ago. So those two strands of Christianity are still there in Germany, the Catholic and the Protestant churches, the Lutheran churches, and they're still there to this day. And some people even pay church tax, which I was surprised when I moved here, to keep the churches going. But as Richard said, I think many people these days, you know, they have their private views, or they don't go to a church or whatever. Most famous festival, well, there are many. I mentioned Bavaria early on, where people they wear the lederhosen. There's a very famous beer festival in Munich where people go to get drunk. I'm afraid millions of people every year, and of course this year with Corona, it was cancelled. Unbelievable! First time in its history, I think that the beer festival was cancelled in Bavaria. And there are other famous festivals. Music, classical music, of course, in Germany has a very strong tradition. You maybe heard the name of Johann Sebastian Bach, the most famous composer ever, and other great composers like Mozart and Beethoven and Brahms and Mahler, and one called Wagner, who wrote operas, Wagner operas. There's a very famous festival at Bayreuth in southern Germany. But these days, I mean, there are many festivals for all kinds of music, world music, reggae music, pop music, rock music. I mean, you name it, there's a festival for it. Richard, anything else? Any other festivals?
No, I think that's enough there. Yeah.
Literature, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think possibly we
shouldn't forget there are storytelling festivals.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder whether the question was for a festival, thinking of religious festivals. Well,
possibly, yes.
Yeah. People, as I say,
there's Easter, of course.
Easter and Christmas are the main ones, and we're just coming up to Christmas. But people enjoy those. But I think religious views are very much more as a private matter, and people don't make a political thing of it any longer.
Yeah, and in fact, the festivals may be linked to religion, but I think they're celebrated in their own right.
Yeah,
the way we celebrate Christmas, not as Christians, but you know, like even in India now, in most towns, the Santa hats are very popular these days. So everyone on Christmas wears a Santa hat. So that does not make us a practicing Christian. You know, like many of us children, some of you may be also having Christmas trees at home. You know, we like to deck up, you know, and of course in India we have 100,000 gods. So we can easily co-opt Jesus as another Indian god, you know, because we're used to so many gods. But yeah, and as I was telling you, yes, John, sorry.
So maybe I could quickly say that the time before Christmas, the 3-4 weeks before Christmas, is called in Europe the Advent time. Meaning the Advent means the coming. So it's to do with the coming of Jesus at Christmas, the baby Jesus. But the 3 or 4 weeks before, people celebrate on Sundays, and they light a candle each Sunday to celebrate the light and the darkness. And the first, on the 6th of December, the Germans celebrate what they call Nikolaustag, and the children love that. Very quickly, the original Nikolaus story, he was actually a Christian bishop 1,000 years ago, and he gave gifts to poor people. He helped poor people. And this developed into a tradition here where on the 6th of December, parents fill a boot or a sock with goodies, with sweets and with oranges, with fruit, with nuts, and maybe a bit of money as well. And each child in Germany on the 6th of December, they're always very excited because the parents say Nikolaus is coming, the old man with the white beard and the white hair, who later became Father Christmas. Yeah, but the original Nikolaus, you hear Santa Claus, Klaus, that's where it came from, Nikolaus.
Yeah. Very interesting. So a lot of history coming in there.
Yes.
So but children, I know there are lots and lots of questions, but we are already 20 minutes behind, you know, in excess of our time. So what I will request you is, you know, why don't you send in your questions at contactbakul@gmail.com. You know our email. If there are questions that you really want answered, please send your questions to contactbakul@gmail.com, and I will have Richard and John, I request you to kind of respond to these questions, and we'll share it with you with your email IDs, on your email IDs. So please do that. And once again, as I said, we are back tomorrow at 9 p.m. live on the same channels, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, to listen to stories in Oriya, Rabibar, Gopabar. Okay, where we'll be doing origami. Now, Priyanka has a request whether we can do something like a Christmas thing in origami. I will tell that to our storyteller that there is a request, but I'm not sure we'll have something specific for Christmas tomorrow in the storytelling come origami session, right? So, but I'll definitely communicate that. And next Saturday, we are traveling to the country of Norway. I'm very happy to see that many of you could tell about the different Scandinavian countries. So we are going to Norway, which is way up in the north of Europe and full of snow and reindeers, sledges, you know, all that Christmassy thing that we associate. Like, of course, Richard and John told you about the Christmas markets in Germany, which is one of the very special Christmas celebrations, which I believe happens for a month. Like John just told you, the Advent, you know, the weeks before Christmas is a big thing in Germany, and the Christmas markets are also celebrated that time. So we'll be back, but before we end, your parting words. I think some children wanted to know how do you say hi and bye in German. And I think they say danke to say thank you. Is danke thank you?
Yes.
Very good. Yeah. I remember my little German.
And hi, we also just say hello in that way, and goodbye. So is traditionally auf Wiedersehen, means we'll see you until we meet again. But Sujit, could I just say one last thing? Because I did notice in the chat a question from Sunil, which went straight to my heart. Sunil asks what advice we can give to how to be a good orator, how to be a good storyteller. And I would say, all of you, once somebody, a famous storyteller said, well, if you want to be a good storyteller, it's easy. Tell stories. And if you want to be a better storyteller, well, that's easy too. Tell more stories. And that is how you do it. You have to practice. We were not born like this. We practiced and we remembered we were telling a listener. That's really important. There's a phrase, and I'll just finish with this. The amateur tells the words. The professional tells the story. But the artist tells the listener. And if you children practice that, not just the words, the story, that's in your head, but tell the listener, make that communication, and then you are a storyteller too.
Wow. Profound statements there.
Yeah.
John, your parting words.
I just wanted to add to that because I picked the same question from the chat. How do you tell good stories? And I always say to everybody, look, you tell stories every day to your family, to your friends. You know, everybody tells stories every day. But many people say, oh, but I couldn't be a storyteller. Well, like Richard said, it's really just another step of practice. You keep practicing what you do naturally. Use your voice, you use your gestures, and you just learn how to do that in front of more people. Like Richard said, you practice maybe in your family with your friends, tell a joke, even learn a joke. I used to be terrible at learning jokes, but I can do it a bit better these days. And you just discipline yourself and learn the beginning. Every story has a beginning and a middle and an end. And it has several characters, and you learn what happens to each character. So Richard and I never learn a story, every word of a story that we've read in a book. Never. Yeah. We get the story in our head and in our heart, and then we tell it free each time. And each time it's a little bit different. And if you start practicing now, all of you, yeah, by the time you're as old as we are, great, you'd be better than us.
And one more thing, if any of you decide to become a storyteller and become a storyteller, fall in love with a German woman and go to Germany, do not forget to inform us.
It's the best way.
Contact bakul@gmail.com. Right? Send us an email, even if it is 20 years later, and say that Richard and John told us that we must become storytellers and go to Germany. So much now. Have a great time, all of you. See you soon tomorrow and the next Saturday. And goodbye, Richard and John. Lovely having you with us.
Goodbye, and thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you.